If you're looking for a premium enclosed intake setup that will give your 2010 to 2024 4Runner an improvement in power, response, and of course sound, then this one is going to be for you. This intake from S&B is a high quality, no tune required intake that provides you with the benefits of an aftermarket intake setup and a cleanable dry filter with the consistency and heat mitigation properties of your stock setup, basically giving you a best of all worlds scenario. Now just a quick note on fitment here before we dive in too deep. This is designed to fit 2010 to 2024 4-liter powered 4Runners, excluding 2022 to 2024 SR5 and TRD Sport models. Cold air intakes are some of the most popular modifications that people make to their trucks, and with good reason. However, not all intakes are created equal. Many on the market are just an open filter in an engine bay, which, while they may be able to pull in a greater volume of air than your stock setup, they're going to be pulling in a lot of hot air from within the engine bay itself. And that's where something like this one from S&B comes in. S&B claims that this is a 43% increase in overall airflow versus your stock intake, and that overall it is 99.26% efficient in its filtering. So let's take a closer look at how they do that. Now the biggest and most obvious feature is that this is a fully enclosed intake system. It's larger than your stock air box, and it actually mates up to the intake scoop that is on your truck from the factory, so it's going to pull cool air in from outside the truck. Now S&B also has this clever plug right here that you can pop out, so you can open up the air box if you need a bit more actual air coming in for optimum performance. But if you're out somewhere where it's really hot or dusty, you can seal this whole thing off and help keep the filter cleaner and cooler. The lid is also sealed too, and the plexiglass lid here adds some visual interest to the engine bay. Plus, you can check on the condition of the filter without having to disassemble anything. Now, cooler air means more power and better response because cooler air combusts better, and that's important in any engine. Now, that large air box is going to feed all that cooler air through an equally large air filter. This has a lot more surface area than your stock filter, so it's going to let a lot more air through. More air again means better combustion, which again leads to more power. This filter is of the dry variety, which means it's low maintenance, cleanable, and very good at capturing small particles of dust, dirt, and debris. And you can reuse this guy, so it will help save on maintenance costs since you only need to clean it out with some compressed air occasionally and pop it back in, you're back on the road. And if properly maintained, filters like these can last a heck of a long time. So you don't need to worry about replacing this every year or so, and if you drive your truck in dusty or dirty conditions regularly, this will be extremely helpful. But then we get to what is perhaps my favorite part of any intake, and that is the intake tube. Now this one is totally unbaffled, and it's got some nice resonance to it because it's all one hard piece. So between this, the filter, and that big air box, you're gonna get some additional sound here, which again, my favorite part of an intake because it's quiet until you really put your foot down. Also, it's worth noting that this setup does not require you to tune your vehicle either, so you can just bolt this on and be ready to roll. Construction here is all very high quality, as we've come to expect from S&B. The box and intake tube are made from durable ABS plastic. It's strong, it's lightweight, and it has really good heat resistance properties. That clear lid I mentioned earlier is constructed from polycarbonate, which is the same kind of material that makes up your headlight lenses. And the seals on here are premium, really thick silicone, so everything is strong and durable. The filter we were looking at earlier is an 8-layer cotton media with some seriously deep pleats to it. So suffice it to say, this thing is going to be a very stout setup that will last you a long time. Pricing for this one comes in at about $400, and that's actually pretty standard for the category. You're getting some really nice features here, plus this is going to give you good sound, good results, and it's very easy to service and put together. Plus, it performs even better than a stock intake. So overall, I think this is a very good value for what you're getting, and it's one of the most high-quality intake setups we've seen for these trucks. When it comes to installation, this will get a 1 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and it should take you around 1 hour to get this installed. Overall, this is a very simple operation. Everything you need to get it done is included in the box, and it's a totally bolt-on setup. So to show you how to get this installed in your 4Runner right now, let's head on out to the shop and we'll walk you through the process.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, clip remover tool, scissors or diagonal cutters, Phillips head screwdriver, 11mm wrench, an extension, 8, 10, 12, and 13mm sockets.
What's up guys? Today we're installing an intake on our 4Runner. First we're going to watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove your factory intake, and I'll meet you back here for the install.
All right, first thing we're going to do is we have to remove our engine cover. That just lifts off, and then we have 2 lines to disconnect. So we're going to need a pair of pliers just to loosen the clamps. All right, you're just going to grab the front of the engine cover, lift up, and then pull out. Put that off to the side. Now we have our first line here. You can either use your fingers to loosen it, or if you need to, use a pair of pliers. Then just move the clamp backwards. Wiggle that off. And then our second line is this smaller line here. Ours comes with a new line that we're going to replace, so we're going to take it off down here. All right, now we're going to take our ratchet with an extension and a 10mm socket. We're going to loosen our clamp at our throttle body, and then also take our 10mm bolt out of our mount here. All right, now we're going to disconnect our mass airflow sensor. Just squeeze the tab down and pull up. Then we're going to grab our clip removal tool, and we just have to remove the wiring off of our air box. So we have one here, and then two on the back side here that might be hard to see. So just grab our clip removal tool, get underneath, just lift them up. All right, and then we're going to release the top of our airbox. So there are 4 spring clips going all the way around. Just release them. Lift up, and then pull off your throttle body. Take your air filter out. And now we can take out our 12mm bolts that are on the inside of the airbox. So we're going to grab our ratchet, extension, and 12mm socket and take them out. There's 2 on the inside and then 1 on the back here. All right, and then you can pull the bottom air box out.
Now that we have our stock intake removed, we're going to need to transfer over our mass airflow sensor. So grab a Phillips head screwdriver and we'll get this onto our new intake pipe. So take that Phillips head screwdriver and remove your 2 screws. We have new screws included in the kit, so you won't be reusing these. And then just wiggle out your sensor, be careful with this. And we'll put this into our new intake tube. So now take your sensor, figure out which way it lines up. It's going to be that way. So then we're going to line up our gasket to the correct orientation, followed by our spacer and the sensor. And then you can take your new screws included in the kit, make sure that they're going through that spacer. I'm gonna get my first one started, a couple threads, and then get my second one in. And then you can fully tighten down those 2 screws. And then while we're here, the only other thing we need to do is install the fitting for our vacuum line. So just go ahead, thread it in, get those threads started. And then we're just going to take an 11mm wrench to snug it up. Now these are plastic threads going into metal threads, so make sure you don't over tighten, just get it snugged up. Right there, snug, so that's good to go. Next we're going to assemble our intake box. We've got a cap and then a couple gaskets that are going on here. The first one's going to be the ring that goes in where our intake duct is. So just get it on one end, stretch it around the other. And then we'll come over right next to it to this big square hole. We have the plug that we can put in here. Now this is optional. If you want a little more airflow coming into your box, you can leave it off. Since it's included in the kit, I'm just going to install it for demonstration purposes. get it in on one side and then just pinch at the corner and push in. And then we'll flip to the side that our intake tube is gonna come into the airbox through. We've got this gasket that's got a channel right down the middle that's gonna ride around the lip of this hole. So just get it pressed around the lip, hold it there, and then just work the rest of the way around. And then just make sure it's fully seated on the outside and inside all the way around. And then we can get this mounted up into our 4Runner. Now, one last thing we need to do before we install our intake box is to remove this bracket, because it's gonna sit pretty much right in front of where our intake tube needs to go. So just take a 10mm socket on the bolt on the valve cover and remove it. So now we're gonna throw our intake box in. Now, before I do that, we've got 3 bolt holes that we're gonna be threading bolts into through our intake box. So that's there, and there. It's gonna be a little difficult to see once the box is in place. So just pull back the wiring from your mass airflow sensor. Drop your air box into place. Get it lined up. And then we're gonna take the bolts and flat washers included in the kit to thread into those threaded holes. We've got flat washers with those bolts as well. Then grab a 13mm socket and extension and tighten those down. So now I'm going to take the filter, drop it into our box. Now grab your intake tube, take the coupler that connects it to the throttle body, and then we're going to slide that all the way on so that it's completely flush. And then I'm gonna wiggle our intake tube into our box. Now I'm gonna take my 2 clamps, slide it over, and then mate my intake tube up to the throttle body. Slide your coupler down onto the throttle body. Make sure that it's fully seated all the way around. Then I'm going to take our breather hose, connect that to the intake tube, and then pinch the clamp, drop that into place. And then I'm going to come over to the throttle body. I'm going to rotate my clamp and take an 8mm socket, tighten it down. I've got the bolt side over closer to the intake manifold because I've got this module on the throttle body. Take an 8mm socket and tighten this down. Make sure that's nice and tight, and then we'll move back to our air box. So now I'm going to take my mass airflow sensor connector, connect that to my MAF sensor, and then I'm going to take my filter and slide it over my intake pipe. And I'm just going to rotate my clamp. And then we're going to take an 8mm socket with an extension and tighten that down. Now we can install that vacuum line connecting our fuel pressure regulator to our intake tube. So I'm going to slide it onto the regulator first, slide it all the way on. And then we've got a bunch of excess that I'm going to end up trimming. I'm going to leave a little bit of slack so it's not pulled straight to this fitting. So right there is the straight pull. I'm just going to back it off a little bit, give it a little bit of slack. I'm going to make my cut right there. You can use scissors or diagonal cutters for this. And then we're just going to slide it over our barbed fitting all the way on. And then I'm just going to spin it so that my slack goes down. Next, we're going to be installing our gasket and our cover for the airbox. It's got this little notch. This notch is going to go towards the corner with the tab. I'm gonna put that corner in last. So just pick another corner, get it started in there. And then just work it all the way around. Now when we get back to that corner, we're just gonna give it a good stretch. Get it in that channel. And then just line it up to your airbox and just push it down. And now we just need to reinstall our engine cover. We've got these 2 clips at the back that are gonna go onto these grommets. And then we've got a pin here and a pin here that are gonna clip into the grommets on our cover. Let's pop it on at the back first. Press it down. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the SMB cold air intake with dry extendable filter for your 2010 and newer 4-liter 4Runner, excluding 22 to 24 SR5 and TRD Sport. Thank you for watching, and for all things 4Runner, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.